Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your boy Average Fisherman. I hope everybody's doing well today, and I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. I was gonna take a minute today, and I was out here doing some tackle, and I've had some questions about Carolina rigs recently, and I thought, you know what, this is a great time to sit down and do a quick video for everybody about Carolina rigs. The what to do's, what not to do's, and what I commonly use. So with that being said, let's dive into today's video. All right, everybody, I'd like to welcome you back to the Average Fishing Channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today, we're talking about Carolina rigs. So we're going to start off with talking about, a lot of people have been asking a lot of questions in regards to, you know, what my setup is, when am I throwing a Carolina rig, and what am I throwing it on? So I was out here rigging some tackle, and I thought today would be a great day to sit down and do this video. So let's start off with the rod. There's a couple key components in a rod that you're looking for with a Carolina rig. I throw a 7'6" old 18 suppressor series rod. It's a heavy action. Why is it such a long rod? A lot of people, you know, you could throw a Carolina rig on a 7-foot rod, that's okay, but you really need a longer rod. One, it allows a longer cast. It gives you more backbone and longer length, so that way, you know, when you take in consideration with your leader, you can set back and then you can fling it. Now, the cast is important because a lot of guys I see often, and too many times guys are just trying to whip it, you know, whip it. Carolina rig cast is more of a lob, so take that in consideration. So with a bigger rod, you know, you can lob that Carolina rig out there and get a lot further cast, and getting a far cast for the Carolina rig is important. You want to try and cover ground with it. So I have mine on a 7'6" heavy. It's got a fast tip. This is an old 18 suppressor series rod. I want to also talk about why it's important to have that long rod for your hook sets, okay? So when you're down there, whether you're fishing real deep, you know, medium range, shallow range, whatever you're fishing this Carolina rig for, it's got a lot of applications. We'll get into that in a second. I want a longer rod to help with my hook sets, okay? Because you've got a lot of line out there, you've got a leader out there, okay? And I really want to set that hook. And when I pick that rod up, I'm moving a lot of line. Often than not, too many people do not realize how far you're dragging that bait with a 7'6" rod or 8 foot, whatever you're throwing. It's moving that bait a lot on the bottom, okay? So that's a little quick tip, a bonus tip for you. When you're throwing a Carolina rig, slow down with your dragging. Watch, pay attention how far you're moving your rod up to drag that bait. So 7'6", this is a heavy, it's a fast tip. And what is the third component that's really important that I want to talk about? Your first two is your, you know, the length, and the second one is the action of the rod. This is a heavy. You want a heavy to be able to handle the weight you use, and, you know, just handle, you know, the casting of everything. So here's the third element. The third element is make sure you all have a very sensitive rod. I can't tell you how important it is to have a rod that you can feel everything with. And with these old 18 suppressor series, I feel everything on the bottom. I've had several guys that have fished with me, and I'm catching fish and they're like, man, what am I doing? I have the same bait you do, I'm casting the same area. 9 times out of 10, they're not even feeling the bite. And it's so important to have a sensitive rod, because a lot of times those bass, they're not just smashing it. Especially the time you're throwing a Carolina rig. You gotta think you're throwing it in the fall, the winter, early spring. Those bass are slow, and they're just going up there and they're just picking up that bait. And when you pick that rod up, you can just feel the difference. I can't stress how important that is. So we covered the rod. Now let's talk about weights, because this is why it's important to have a heavy rod. I throw 3 types of weights, 3 weights, I should say. I have a 1/2 ounce, I have a 3/4, and I have a 1 ounce sinker. Okay, 1 ounce sinker typically, if I'm fishing in 26 foot plus of water, usually 25, let's just go 5. 25 foot of water, I like to throw a heavier sinker. One, it maintains contact with the bottom, especially on these days that's like today. We have 15-mile-per-hour winds. You got a bunch of slack in your line. It just helps me keep my bait on the bottom. That's when I'll throw a 1-ounce sinker. Higher winds and I'm fishing pretty deep, I typically stick with a 3/4 ounce sinker. This is a Elite sinker. It's 3/4 tungsten. I'm not sponsored by them. I throw tungsten sinkers. One, I really do believe there's a huge difference in the ability to feel the bottom, if that makes sense. I like to know when I'm going over gravel, when I'm going over a shell bed, when I'm hitting those hard lips underneath the water, or if I'm in grass. I like to use tungsten because it gives me a better feel on the bottom, all while working with smooth cohesion with the rod. Okay, so good rod, good weights. Now the catch is, sorry about that, I had a phone call. It seems like every time I try to sit down and do a video, I get all these phone calls that come in, but the rest of the day I won't get another one. So where I was talking about, the catch is, you can use lead weights, nothing wrong with it, okay? But if you really want to get the most out of your Carolina rig and everything you're feeling, get tungsten and make sure you have a very good rod. If you got to skimp on one, skimp on the weights. Just get lead, but save your money and buy a good rod. I can't tell you how important that is. So let's get into the setup of a Carolina rig. It's really simple, okay? You have your weight and you have your leader with the hook on the end of it, and whatever your favorite bait is to throw on the end of it, that's what you throw. Since we're on the bait subject, let's talk about baits. Typically a Carolina rig, I usually throw a flute on it, or I'll throw a brush hog, I'll throw some kind of creature bait, okay? It stays in contact with the bottom, and what's important about a Carolina rig is you keep it on the bottom, okay? This isn't a bait where, you know, you're jumping it way up like a spoon and letting it go back down. There's two types of ways to work the Carolina rig. You can kind of give it small hops, and then there's the drag, okay? There are two types of drags. You have an up drag where you're pulling your rod straight up and it's dragging, or you have the sweep motion. A lot of the times I have a sweeping, you know, from left to right motion with my Carolina rig, and that's just typically how you work it. You want that bait to stay on the bottom. You know, like I said, pair it with a creature bait, brush hog, flute. Especially as you come into the winter months on Rayburn, a flute works really, really well, and so does a brush hog. So with the setup, I throw it on a 4/0 hook. This is a VMC Pro V Hook. To be honest with you, I just love this hook. It's an all-around hook for me. I throw it on my Texas rigs, you know, on shaky heads, things like that. This is usually the hook I stick with. A lot of guys throw a light wire gauge hook. They have their reasons. I typically stick with a 4/0 VMC Pro V hook. I like the Pro V. That's really important right here. The Pro V hook is really important because when you're rigging a bait, let's look down here. You got a Cinco. When you're rigging that bait up, okay, when you're dragging on the bottom, this bait is constantly being drug over stuff. I need a hook that's going to stay in there. So that's what it looks like when it's rigged. As you can see, that V makes it flat, makes it parallel to the bait. So when you stick it inside that bait, it stays inside. Now, a lot of people are like, well, don't you want it kind of like a wide gap hook on that? So when you set the hook, you know, it's going into the bass's mouth. I've never had a problem hooking any bass on these hooks whatsoever. Usually when I stick them, it's hard to get out. So I like a Pro V hook. What I will tell you is that whatever hook you want to throw, just make sure that it isn't opened up so much that it's going to protrude out of this bait, because when you're dragging them on the bottom, they will grab stuff. They're going to hook stuff. Your hook's going to come through your worm or whatever you're throwing for that matter, and it's going to stick on stuff. Regardless of what you're throwing, it's still going to do it. But if you can minimize it, that's important. For my leader, this is monofilament 17-pound test. I like monofilament as my leader, and I will shorten it or make it longer depending on what my water clarity is and just the pressure on the lake at the time. Cleaner water, longer leader. Shorter leader equals Dirtier water, more pressure, go back to longer leader. So if there's a lot of pressure on your lake and the water clarity is good, have about a 4-foot leader. 4 foot is about what I run. I will shorten up to a 3 foot depending on if the water's chalky you look in, if we've had a lot of rain and it's just got that kind of off color to it, I will have a shorter leader. It does make a difference, I promise you. Typically right now in the wintertime, I have about a 4-foot leader, and it's because the fish are kind of lethargic, you know, they're slow. I don't want it, you know, being right up next to the weight making a bunch of noise. So I'll have about a 4-foot leader. This is monofilament. Why do I use monofilament? Because it will come off the monofilament floats. So it will stay off the bottom just a little bit. Okay, and during the winter time, a lot of those fish get right on the bottom and they're sucked to the bottom, staying warm. I will switch to fluorocarbon if that's the case, but 90% of the time I stick with monofilament, so my bait floats up off the bottom just a little bit so it gets right in those fish's face. As you can see, there's a swivel, okay? Here's your leader, and then everything above it is your sinker, and I have a bobber stopper on here, okay? What's important with this bobber stopper is a lot of guys won't throw a Carolina rig with a bobber stopper, and what happens is it slides way up their line when they go to cast, and what happens is they don't get a very good cast because it does this huge slinky looking swing effect out there, and if you ever throw one without one, you know what I'm talking about. So I pair mine with a bobber stopper. It does slide up. I use the 6th Sense ones. I really like them a lot. They stay pegged down. You can buy other ones that have, you know, it's yellow, red, and black, and that is based off your line size, whether it's 15-pound, 12-pound test. So I stick with 6th Sense. I'm not sponsored by them, but I just really like their bobber stoppers. What I do is, this is a 3/4 weight on here right now. Typically during the summer months, I will put a bead under here, okay? There's good and bad with the bead. Good because it makes a bunch of noise. I won't peg it all the way down for everybody that's thinking, well, how's that making noise if you got it pegged? I'll bring that peg up just a little bit, and then I'll create just a little bit of slide. Just a little bit of slide in there for that to go back and forth and hit on that glass bead. Now what the glass bead is, it will cut your line up right here. So after 20, 30 casts, make sure you're just looking at it. Okay, just be cognizant of it, look at it, and if it gets cut up, you need to retie because those glass beads will cut it up. I've yet to find a brand that is completely smooth inside and won't tear it up. During the winter months, I do not use a bead. Okay, I don't want a bunch of noise. I want it to be slow. I want it to be quiet. It's the same reason you throw flat-sided square bills and, you know, a lot less noisy baits during the winter. Those fish are lethargic, they're slow. So I will typically just put the peg on here and I'll peg it down. That way when I cast, it's not flinging way up the line, okay? So recap on the setup. I have about a 4-foot leader. I have a 4/0 hook on it with a Pro V. This is a trocar hook. I love the monofilament. It keeps it up off the bottom a little bit, but I will use fluorocarbon. This is a 17-pound test. This is 4 foot. Shorten your leader on dirty water, longer leader on clear water. And if there's really high pressure, go longer leader. I've seen 5-foot leaders before. I've thrown them, and it does make a difference. It's tied to a barrel swivel up here. Whatever barrel swivel you want, doesn't really matter, as long as it's sturdy. I have a 3/4 ounce sinker on here. I will go up to 1 ounce on real windy days and when I'm fishing super deep, and I will bump back down to a 1/2 ounce sinker whenever I'm fishing more shallow. Put the bobber stop on it and peg it. That's Carolina rig, all right? Now, as far as the reel, I'm throwing mine on an Abu Garcia. This is a 711. It's got 10 ball bearing in it. It's just a great reel. I really like Abu Garcia reels. I know a lot of guys use Shimano. You guys use whatever you want. I have it on a higher speed reel because whenever I'm reeling down to set the hook, okay, I'm taking all that slack out of my line, okay, and I'm laying the pine to the fish with this longer rod, okay. Carolina rig can be used. Let's talk about the setups just a little bit, and presentation and where to throw it, okay. You could throw it in the grass. I encourage everybody to lighten up to at least a 1/2 ounce, if not a 1/4 ounce sinker, if you're wanting to drag it through the grass. You can throw it in the drains. You can throw it over laydowns. You want this bait to be on the bottom. And I can't tell everybody enough. It's like the biggest known secret, okay? Drag it slow. When I say slow, you need to be counting pebbles. Just drag real slow, okay? And if you're using your technology, if you find the fish and you either got a float out or you got some kind of forward-facing sonar, you're gonna be able to make that cast regardless. So you want to keep that bait in the strike zone long. Just drag it slow, especially during these winter months, everybody. These fish are slow and on the bottom. If you don't believe me, the next time you catch a fish off the bottom in deeper water, look at the belly of the fish. I bet you're gonna find mud on it. That's because they stick to the bottom and they're staying warm. So I want that bait to be drugged super slow, and I want it to go right past them. Often than not, you're gonna have to put it right in front of them for them to munch it. They don't really chase too much, okay? I like to drag mine in the drains. I drag mine in the drop-offs, and you can use it to feel. When I was a kid, you didn't have all this technology and crazy stuff. My dad had a hummingbird graph, and you know, it was just down, just sonar. That's what it was back in the day. And we used to use these Carolina rigs. You'd idle over something, you could see, you know, it looked like some kind of rough bottom, spin back around, throw the Carolina rigs. It's gonna tell you what's down there, okay? So if you're fishing a drop off and you throw that Carolina rig out there and it feels super hard, well, that tells you that the bottom is really hard out there, okay? If it's super soft and it's kind of hard to pull, it's probably muddy. Or if you're in a drain, you'd be dragging leaves. That happens a lot. So you can throw them in the grass, lighten up when you throw in the grass to probably a 1/4 ounce or maybe even a 1/2 ounce, depending on how thick that grass is. Open water out there over laydowns and stuff. I use a 3/4 ounce sinker, and a lot of times I'm using these bullet style sinkers, okay? And I'm dragging real slow. During the summer, I switched to a barrel. Makes a lot more noise with that bead, and it's just hitting everything and kicking up all the time. And fish slow. Keep it on the bottom and take your time, everybody. A Carolina rig is not a moving bait. It's meant to be drugged slow. Keep it in front of the fish's face. Keep it in that strike zone. And when you pair it with any kind of bait, take in consideration of the time of year. Right now, the bass forage, winter time's here. Well, if you're here in Texas, you wouldn't think it was here. You'd think it was summertime right now or early spring. Typically in the winter, you pair your Carolina rig with a flute. Now you can use the mag flutes, you can use the regular style flutes, you can use the paddle styles, swim baits, the paddle tails, you can use those. Typically on a Carolina rig, I like using the fork tails, okay, it's more subtle. I will put creature baits on there. We'll put brush hogs, I will put the Reaction Innovations beaver on there. It just depends the time of year, okay, and the forage the bass are eating. So keep that in mind. So I hope this answers a bunch of questions that everybody's been sending me in regards to, like, hey, what's your setup on the Carolina rig? Can I throw it on a medium? Can I throw it on this? To recap, this is a 7'6" rod, old 18 suppressor series. It's a heavy rod. Okay, we want a heavy rod so we get good hook sets and we can make long casts. It's a suppressor series. I truly love these series. You can feel everything on the bottom. It's really important to have a very good rod. You can have the best link or leader link, you could have tungsten sinker, but if you're not feeling what's going on down on the bottom with a good rod, you're just not going to feel your bites. Leader length, okay, long or short depending on your water clarity and fishing pressure. I use a 4/0 hook. You could go down to a 2/0 hook. You can go up to a 5/0 hook depending on how big the bait is. 7-to-1 gear ratio on the reel. You want a high-speed reel to take up that slack, okay? And with these hook sets, you guys don't have to just, set the hook so hard that you're about to fall out of the boat. With these rods these days and the fluorocarbon and stuff, there's hardly no stretch. Now, I know I got monofilament on the bottom, but still, these hooks are so sharp, these rods are so good these days that you don't have to set the hook and fly to the back of the boat, okay? Reel down, take up your slack a little bit, and give it a good pop, and you're gonna stick these fish, I promise. So, with all that information today, I hope it helps everybody out there as this winter time's coming on, and a Carolina rig is the most versatile bait that you're gonna use, and it's always on my deck in the winter time. It truly is. So with that being said, I hope everybody's doing well. My next video probably won't come out until after my BFL, and I hope everything goes well. Right now the lake's low. The last time I checked, it was 3.5 foot low, so there's not a lot of cover up there in the shallow area. This is the best time to get out there, try a new technique, and learn to fish offshore. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless you and God bless the United States of America. Until next time, out.